Okay, let's talk about multiplying by sevens. So sevens sometimes seem like an intimidating set of multiplication facts to know, but I'm going to tell you a little secret here. We have so many strategies that we can use to help us figure out the sevens that they're not going to be all that hard when it comes down to it. So I'm going to show you a few different strategies that you might use, but you might have some of your own that you also prefer, and that is wonderful. So here I'm showing what 7 times 4 might look like with an array. So we have 7 rows and we have 4 columns, or 4 in each row. So imagine that this is rows of chairs. We have 7 rows of chairs and there's 4 chairs in each row. Now, how can we quickly find the total number of chairs? Well, one way would be to skip count. We could skip count by 4s, 4, 8, 12, 16, like that. Or we could skip count by 7, 7, 14, 21, 28. However, skip counting is not always the best option. Sometimes it's a better idea to have a really good strategy. So here's one way that I might do it. I might see these rows of chairs and think to myself, okay, here are 5 rows of 4, and here are 2 rows of 4. So 7 times 4 is like saying 5 times 4 plus 2 times 4, right? I'm just going to add the rows in different parts. Now these, I feel, are easier to solve for me. So I know that 5 times 4 is 20, so there must be 20 chairs here in 5 rows of 4. And here there's 2 rows of 4, and I know that that's 8. So altogether, how many chairs do I have? I have 28. So 7 groups of 4 is 28. Now let's talk about another way I could solve that. If I have 7 times 4, I know that I can change the order of the factors, can't I? So this is the same as 4 times 7. Now what do I know about multiplying by 4s? Well, I know that I can use the double of the double. Let me explain that. If you haven't watched the 4s video yet, make sure you go back and do that. So 4 times 7, I could think first of the double of 7, right? 2 groups of 7 makes 14. And so if I double that, so there's 14. Oops, sorry, 2 groups of 7. There we go. And if I do another 2 groups of 7, I have 14. So I'm basically just doubling the double. So I have 28. That's another way that I could solve a sevens fact. So let's write out the sevens facts. And let's discuss some strategies that we might use. Now my strategies might be different than what you might use to figure out one of these facts, and that's okay because we don't all have to use the exact same strategies. So I'm going to share how I'm going to figure these out, and if you have a different way, that's great. So 7 times 1, I know that that's 7 because I know that anything times 1 is itself. 7 times 2, I'm going to think about the double. So when I multiply by 2, I know I can think of the addition doubles. So 2 groups of 7 is like saying 7 plus 7. So that's 14. When I multiply by 3, I know I can use the double. So 2 times 7. And then I can just add another group of 7. So I had 14, I'll add another group, and that makes 21. For 4 times 7, or 7 times 4, remember that it doesn't matter which order the factors are in. So we just solved this one. I'm going to think the double of the double. So the double of 7 is 14. The double of 14 is 28. Now for 7 times 5, I remember in my head that strategy that I learned for tens. So I know that 10 times 7 is 70. Half of 10 is 5. So the product is going to be half. So it's going to be 35. And if you haven't watched the 5s video yet, make sure you watch that for that strategy. Now let's go through and, okay, so let's start with 7 times 6. So I know that 5 groups of 7 is 35. So 6 groups of 7 is just going to be 7 more, and that's 42. 7 times 7 was one of the square facts that I learned. So if I make an array that has 7 rows by 7 columns, it makes a square. And I remember that that one is 49. Let's jump down and do 7 times 10. I know that that's 70 because I know how to multiply by 10. Now when I multiply by 9, 9 groups of 7 is just one fewer group of 7 than 10 times 7. So that's going to be 7 less than 70, which is 63. And now to figure out my last fact, I could do a few things. I'm going to use the splitting the 7 up into 5 groups and 2 groups for this one. So I have 7 times 8. I know that the 7, I can break that into a 5 and a 2, right? I'll break it into parts. And then I'll multiply each of these parts by 8. Just like we did in our array before, in our rows of chairs. So 5 times 8 is 40, 2 times 8 is 16, and then I can add those up to make 56. So I know that 7 times 8 is 56. Now remember, these strategies that I've shown you for these, you don't need to memorize those strategies, and you don't even need to do the strategies exactly like I showed you. This is just one option for some of the 7's facts. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and for more multiplication videos, make sure to check out my channel.